call this regular meeting of the Jessup City Council to order at 7 o'clock p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The council needs to put their mics on. Will the clerk please call a roll of the city council members present?
Denny Bell,
Here.
Curtis Shears,
Here.
David Bishop,
Here.
Craig Wright,
Here.
Todd Rolfson.
Here.
I'm going to kind of try to explain things tonight as we go through the agenda for the new council members. Whenever we have a meeting, we have to have a quorum of the council. Since we have 5 members, we would need 3 members to conduct a meeting. The first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is a consent agenda, and that's just a list of like routine business. To save time, we'll pass all of these in one motion unless a council member asks for one or more items to be voted on separately. So is there anything that anybody wants to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? This requires a roll call vote.
Bell,
Yes.
Shears,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Rolfson.
Yep.
Motion passes. Next, we have departmental reports from police, fire, ambulance, building inspection, library, and public works. They were all in the council packet. Does anybody have any questions on any of the departmental reports?
Just make a quick comment. Looks like we're still getting volunteer firemen and volunteer ambulance people. That's good. Glad to see that.
Yeah, you see so many cities that don't have the volunteers or the people that want to volunteer, and I think it's really great for the city of Jessup to have new people coming on board quite often. Everybody needs them, and we got one of the best ambulance and fire departments around. Of course, I'm prejudiced, but they're great, and it's glad to see new members coming on board. It's really a plus for the city and surrounding communities.
Any other questions or comments? The next item on our agenda is citizens input. If anybody would like to address the council, could you please go to the podium and state your name and address for the record? Not seeing any, we'll move on to old business. I know there's some questions from the last meeting about the advertising campaign. The council did approve to spend $7,308 on the advertising campaign to air bi-monthly. The proposal ended up working out that this would go until September of 2021. Todd, is there anything that you want to elaborate on, or kind of your plan
really,
going forward?
At some point in time, I'd like to change it, but right now we'll run it. When everybody gets sick of it, then we'll change it and maybe look at doing something different, but keep going a length of time. I'd like to try to put together some sort of a complete ad campaign. I'd like to, maybe the chamber or some other businesses to do something in the off months. And I'll work with the chamber on getting that done so we can have some sort of an actual campaign going over a period of time, whatever we can get put together. I think there's some potential funding available to get that done, not from city funds or whatnot, from what I've been learning as we go through this process. But I think it'd be pretty neat if the chamber could do something as well. and one of the off months that the city's commercial's not running.
How come we're doing every other month? And how many ads a month are we running? I was really confused last meeting about what we're doing.
I don't remember exactly either, Danny, I'll be honest with you.
It is in your packet. But the
Yeah, but
proposal-
what I had in my packet is about that much wider than my screen. I couldn't read any of it. Everything else I could read, but what the advertising thing was. On my computer, I can't get it.
Blew
It's
it up.
it blew it up. So I apologize for that, but
This
I
is
don't know how
what-
to get it. Yeah,
What we get,
yeah, he's got it up
Oh, I
on
didn't see it
his.
in my packet, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, it's basically worthless.
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I put it in there yesterday and then resent it last night.
Sorry. Okay.
It's down toward the bottom.
Okay.
So, actually, the ad campaign would start this week. In January, they're running a total of 20 ads throughout the month.
What's the name?
Oh,
It'd probably be about the same every other month.
yeah. I'm sorry, that was 20 ads in the Cedar Falls Utilities area, and then 19 ads in the Cedar Rapids.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds right.
And then, yeah, I assume from there on it's about the same every other month.
what's the reasoning for doing it every other month?
That's what the council voted on.
Probably because they didn't want to see my ugly face every month.
Well, I guess I've always thought in advertising, you wanted to kind of hit it, kind of get it out there, and then start tapering down from there. But that's why, where did this every other month come up? All of a sudden that showed up at last meeting, and I guess I just confused where it came from.
I don't know if that was just to try and stretch out what we got for our money over a longer period of time.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So what do we do with our money that's budgeted next year then?
Something on every other month then too, so we can
'Cause
put
we've got-
something every month about Jessup.
Yeah, whatever. I guess I don't think we had all the information we should have had at the last meeting to vote that in. So,
I know that there's some questions about it, so that's why I just wanted to bring it up tonight.
there's
and
a lot of
update-
questions about it.
Update everybody, but I don't know exactly why it was done the way it was.
I don't either. And I was here.
Are there there's no action to take on that. Any other questions from the council? And next up on the,
But like I said, if there's anybody's got any other ideas, I mean, we could reshoot it, and it's only gonna cost $500 to reshoot parts of it. If you wanna, put something else out there, midway through it, I'm sure we could probably do something like that, but, again, this is, it took longer to put together than what I had originally anticipated. I hope everybody is okay with it, for lack of better words, not that I'm gonna sit there and say I'm, but it's,
Yeah, Todd, I don't have any problem with the ad. I thought the ad was good. I don't have any problem with that. My problem is, I felt like we had about half the information we should have had, and we voted for it. And I think we needed more information before it was ever brought to a vote. And I have concerns about it, I guess. So that's my concern, not the ad itself, and not spending the money for advertising. It's just where the every other month and stretching it out that long came from, because that's not what we voted on several months ago. This wasn't originally supposed to cost us any money till we decided to spend money on it. And now all of a sudden, we're spending all the money, and granted, there may be some money coming down the road, and that's fine, but we did a lot in the dark. And that's not the way this is supposed to be run. And I hope going forward, that's not the way it is.
Any other comments? Next on the agenda is to appoint the fire chief. I'm proposing to appoint Andy Trumbauer as fire chief. Andy was elected by the department to serve as chief. Would anybody on the council want to make a motion to approve the appointment of Andy Trumbauer as fire chief?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Then we have appointment of the ambulance chief. I'm proposing to appoint Cassie Schaefer as ambulance chief. Cassie was likewise elected by the ambulance department. Is there a motion to appoint Cassie as ambulance chief?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Next, we have reappoint an ambulance board member. Paul Martin has previously served on the ambulance board, and he's agreed to serve another term. So I would propose that we appoint Paul Martin to the ambulance board. Would someone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Next up, we have to approve a fire department volunteer. Josh Devlin has applied to be a member of the department. Is he here tonight? Would someone like to make that motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Is there a second?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
How many firefighters will we have then, Andy?
That was back at 30.
Back at 30? Is that our equivalent that we need, or do we need?
It's a lot of young, anxious people.
Mm-hmm.
Our roster allows for 35, and we've had 35 previously, but it all depends on how active some of the membership is. And
Yeah.
Right now, we're
Yeah.
really active.
Seemed like before I was remembering it was 35, I thought, for manpower or staff, so getting back up there a little bit, slowly but surely.
Yep, and we still have, just for clarification, the association will meet this Thursday and formally vote him on, but he attended the last meeting, expressed his interest, sat through some training, he's going to the informational firefighter 1 meeting over in Independence, and is on board to take that class too, so.
Okay.
That's all good.
Any other questions? Would someone like to make a motion to appoint Josh Devlin as a volunteer firefighter? Oh, sorry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Next up, we have an ambulance volunteer, Lacey Brua, has applied to be a member of the Jessup Ambulance Department. She's not here. Well, would someone like to make that motion?
Make a motion.
Is there a second? Craig. Any discussion? Cassie, do you have any?
No.
Happy to have her. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Next up, we have a resolution approving a Blackhawk County Gaming Association grant application for a new fire truck.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Andy, do you have anything you want to say at this time?
there's, I think we're all on board to apply. There's a couple technicalities I have to check into. And obviously we have to apply locally first, Buchanan County, which is fine. So the only thing that would rescind that is if one of those qualifications doesn't meet what we're applying for. So, more timeline based than anything.
Okay. You know how much you're gonna apply for yet?
If probably in the neighborhood of 50,000. In general conversation with Ms. Knipp over there, her recommendation to outside counties is typically that they don't award much over 25,000 for any specific project, but in looking at Independence and some other communities that have requested for similar equipment or similar apparatus for considerably higher, I guess 50% of their valuation of their equipment, so ours is more based less than 10%. So she thought that put us in a different category. Every percentage, I think, puts you in a different bracket of how much you're asking for versus the value of the equipment. So,
Okay.
originally was thinking more, but considering going less, but I think it's kind of that's a fair estimate, fair amount to shoot for, I guess,
Okay, that sounds good.
in my opinion.
Anything else from the council?
You asked for more and got rejected, would you get another shot to get?
So I did pose the question if we ask for amount X, and they say, well, I said, do you guys ever consider a lesser amount? And she said, that's not typically, it's not the way they want you to apply. They want you to apply for what you need, fulfill it. It has happened in the past, but it's not the general practice to lessen what you're asking and then award it, not say it hasn't been done.
So then that could put you at a greater risk of not being awarded anything.
Potentially, yeah.
Anything else from the council? This will require a roll call vote.
Bishop,
Yes?
Wright,
Yes.
Shares,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Rolfson.
Yep.
Motion passes. Next, we have a resolution approving a Blackhawk County Gaming Association grant application for new patrol car computers. Someone on the council want to make that motion?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
If I could for just real quick, Chris, or Josh, what's the difference between what we have now and these new computers?
The computers we have now are 2014. They were purchased with new vehicles back in 14. They're just outdated, and with the newer technology that we're adding to it, we're seeing more and more problems with the current computers not being able to keep up with what they're doing. So
Okay,
we just need to get some newer technology, basically increase our speed and stuff, so it kind of all interact a little better together.
how many are we asking for?
Two.
Two,
Yep.
okay.
Well, essentially, the Blackhawk County grant is, I guess it always used to be a 50-50 match. The grant that I applied for last year, I didn't get 50. I got a third instead of a half of what we were asking for. So
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to be that it's going to be a third of asking. A little different situation with Andy because they're asking for considerably less than their total project amount. So in theory, I wouldn't see any reason why they wouldn't accept
Yeah.
that grant. And honestly, if my grant interferes with that one, I'd be happy to step back away from it. I don't know how they handle that, especially for out of county, since I just applied the last round. You only apply once a year for the out of county grants. So basically what I did is I took the total amount for two new computers, and then the docking stations also, and then I submitted half of that
Okay.
for a total, I think, 2,200. That's not even it. 2,200 and something, I think, is what I.
2248.
And then I as well, we're required to apply for the Buchanan County. You have to apply for your local grant as well, that's not open yet. I'll apply as well once that opens in
Okay.
February.
Okay.
Anything else from the council? Josh, you didn't have anything more? Okay, that requires a roll call vote again.
Shares,
Yes.
Rolfson,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Bell.
Yes.
Next, we have the first reading of an ordinance amending the code regarding regular city council meetings. This would change the ordinance for our council meeting dates from the first and third Tuesday to the first and third Monday. Would someone like to make a motion on that?
I make a motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? This would also require a roll call vote.
Wright,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Shares,
Yes.
Bishop,
Yes.
Rolfson,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I assumed you let the council know of the occasional conflicts I could have on the third Monday.
No, they already passed.
Okay, well, I'll just let the council know I attend. I assumed you had let them in on that and that they knew of that. The mayor asked me if I was available on the first and third Mondays. I represent Clarksville and Raymond. Clarksville very rarely needs me on the first Monday. Raymond does have me come on the third Monday at 6. Generally speaking, I'm out of there by 6:40, 6:45. So if I'm needed for here on a third Monday and there's bad weather or they go longer than normal, I might not get here till 7:10, 7:15, what have you. Additionally, as always with all the rest of my council meetings, you don't need me to attend because there isn't anything controversial. I don't need to be here if you don't need me to attend. Obviously, if there's something that you think that you need my services for, then I'm always gonna show up for that, but, so that would be the only issue that could ever happen with a third Monday in general.
Any,
Mayor had asked me about it, and so that was the answer I gave him, so I had assumed he had communicated with each of you all individually about that, but if he had, it's no big deal, I just wanted to let you all know about that issue.
fortunately, the ordinance requires 3 readings, so it's not passed yet if you wanna change your mind. Next up, we have on the agenda a possible waiver of second and third readings. On an ordinance, a lot of times it could be done at 3 different meetings, that's why they have 3 readings. On less controversial things, we have the option of waiving the second and third reading and passing it in one night. So this is out there for the council, if they wanna go ahead and change the meeting dates right away, we can waive second and third reading. Does anybody wanna make that motion?
I'll make the motion to combine them all, the second, and third readings.
Is there a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion? Can the clerk call a roll call on that?
Bishop,
Yes.
Shares,
Yes.
Rolfson,
Sure.
Bell,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
And then the last thing in that procedure is to move for final adoption of the ordinance. Does somebody wanna make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? You call a roll?
Wright,
Yes.
Rolfson,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Shares,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
So then that motion will become effective once I sign it and once it's published in the paper. So if we do that right away, our next
Be next one.
third week, it'll be moved to Mondays then. Next on the agenda, we have a budget overview. And this is just gonna kinda be a big picture look at the budget, not really getting into a lot of details with the numbers yet, but with a lot of new council members, we kinda wanted to give you that first and then kinda talk where we wanna be with the levy rate, and if there's any specific projects or something that the council wants to see in that, and then our next meeting will bring back more specific numbers, and the council will have those before the meeting to look at.
We did, it's been maybe a couple months ago, we did a list of potential projects, and maybe we ought to get that out to everybody new, probably. So they can look at that and see what their thoughts are on those things. That was kind of a brainstorm on some stuff we might be looking at doing.
Do you wanna run you want me to?
I don't know.
Okay.
But we don't need them right now, we could get them.
No, he's got a PowerPoint
Oh, he's got
presentation
PowerPoint,
for the
huh?
budget.
I
And I also.
thought he actually listened to me.
I also printed out and put on your desk here just some informational stuff for the budget that we couldn't really get in the PowerPoint. And we'll go through what I put on the table here. I can. Yeah. So with government and accounting, you have all of these different. Each line up there is a different fund, and so if you look at the very first one, it's over on the left-hand side. It says general fund, and that number that corresponds that is 001. So within fund accounting, we have to keep everything separate that we do when money comes in or we spend money out of each one of these different types of funds. And what he's put up here is, like for the very first one, it says general fund. These are the revenues that come into the general fund, and then these are the expenses that come out of the general fund. So a lot of our departments within the city are paid out of the general fund. So like the police department, the fire department, the ambulance department, the building department, the clerk and city hall funds, they're all coming out of the departments are all being, the revenues that are brought in and the expenses that are paid out are all paid out of the general fund. So that's kind of your biggest fund that we have within the city, that we pay out of and bring money into. So the next one down is the road use tax fund, and that's where we bring in money from the state based on fuel taxes that people pay when they go buy a new vehicle, or when you go to the gas station, you have to pay tax on that. That comes in as road use tax money, and that fund number is the 110. And so when you're looking at the budget worksheets, not really the budget worksheets, but the department reports that I put up top in the consent agenda, you'll see these funds like the 001 and the 110. You'll see them numbers on them reports that I give you in your council packet each month. So where was that? Road use tax. So that is road use tax is basically used for streets. So anything street related is what we pay for out of the road use tax fund. So just maintenance of streets, basically. So our seal coating comes out of road use tax. If we do any concrete work, comes out of road use tax. Other than a big, giant project that we do, things are paid out of road use tax. So the next one down is employee benefits. That's kind of self-explanatory. It's the employees that work for the city, and the benefits that they get is paid out of that 112 fund. So if you can see over on the right, it says FICA and IPERS, and the work comp is paid out of there. And we receive that revenue from property taxes. So when we start talking about the budget, there's a line on the certification page that we levy property taxes for the employee benefits. So the next one down is the emergency levy, and this fund is kind of a extra help type of fund to help your general fund. So we can levy up to 27 cents per $1,000 of property taxes on a yearly basis that we bring into the city, and that money is transferred to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year every year just to help support your general fund, is what that emergency levy is for. Next one down is local option sales tax, and that's the 1% that everybody pays when they go to Dollar General and they buy something and they pay 7%. 1% of that comes to the city, and it goes into our local option sales tax fund, and then we distribute that. 40% of that money goes into a water and sewer fund, and 60% goes towards capital projects. So that's 40% can only be used on water and sewer project because that was sent to the voters and they voted to distribute the money that way, and so that's the way we have to use that money. The next one is tax increment financing. This is kind of a tough one. We haven't used this lately, but we're going to be real soon because of the new subdivisions that are going in. So when the subdivisions go in and the developers put in the infrastructure for the water and the streets, we're able to use this tax increment financing fund to help reimburse the developer the cost of putting in the infrastructure. So then we pay back the developer through this tax increment financing fund. Debt service is the next one. That's the 200 one, and that's collected through property taxes. And that when we take out a bond, this is how we pay the bond back. So we're levying property taxes from the homeowners, and then we pay our annual debt payments through this debt service fund. And then the next one is our project fund, and they will always be a 300 fund number, but each project that we do is a different fund number. So we're up to like 331 now if you look on your reports for the different projects. So like when we did 4th, 5th, and Purdy Street as a project, everything was ran through that project fund just to keep everything centrally located within one area that goes through this project fund. So if we take out a bond to pay for the project, the bond money goes into that fund as a revenue, and then we pay the people that are doing the work out of that project fund. So everything goes in and out of that project fund. The next two are kind of self-explanatory, I guess. Water and sewer. They are separate departments within the city from anything else that's paid out of the general fund because they bring in their own money through the water bill, water and sewer bill. So every time you pay your water bill on a monthly basis, the money goes into these two funds, and then obviously the expenses are what we use to keep the water and sewer going on a monthly basis. The next one is that utility deposits and sales tax. So when we collect water and sewer bills, we have to pay sales tax to the state for the water portion of every water bill. So it goes into that fund. And then we also have deposits that customers pay when they move into town, and that goes into that fund. And then of course we refund them out of that fund when they move out, or we pay the state for the sales tax that we use on that month. Last one, the self-insurance is that is for our health insurance deductible. So we've created a completely, totally separate fund for that. We reimburse the employees a health insurance deductible of up to $500 a year for a family plan. And we just keep that completely separate of all the other employee benefits. So it's a totally different fund. Any questions? That's kind of quick, but I know there's a lot there, and I know you're not going to completely understand it tonight. So you got to, obviously, in any kind of training, if you catch 10% of what was said, you're doing good. So that's kind of an overview to the funds that we use within a city. Every city has to keep their money in this fund accounting by these funds. So if you go look at a different city within the state, they use the same type of funds. All cities do. Questions? Ed?
Important thing to remember when we go through the budget is that we need to look at each one of these funds individually and make sure that they all really two parts to the budget. Once we get into it, we've got the revenue side and we've got the expenditure side. When you get your budget information, it'll be separated out. We'll have kind of two packets there. One will be the revenues. A lot of that is setting the property tax rate. That's where a good percentage of our tax revenues come from. There's also water and sewer charges for service. You know, they may need to be adjusted periodically, especially with the wastewater plant project that we have coming up. And then there's just, you know, other miscellaneous fees and charges that are in that budget that bring additional revenue too, that need to be looked at periodically, such as maybe building permit fees or something, or ambulance fees. And then, of course, estimating the expenses on the expense side. This is how property taxes are computed. You have your assessed value, which is determined by the assessor, and then each classification has a different rollback. And basically, that's a percentage of the assessed value that you actually pay taxes on. So like for commercial property, the rollback is 90%. If you have $100,000 piece of property, you're only gonna pay taxes on $90,000 worth of that. And then you take that times the consolidated levy rate, which has the school, city, county, community college, and a couple of other smaller ones. The city's portion, or consolidated levy rate, is about 40%. And then the school takes about another 40%, the rest of it's divided up between the other entities. And at the end, they take off tax credits such as a homestead credit or military credits. This is what the rollbacks look like by property classification. This is the way the assessor classifies them, not necessarily how your property is zoned. You have to look and see how the assessor classifies it. But the city's kind of taken a couple of hits in the last, about 6 or 7 years ago. Commercial and industrial used to be taxed at 100%. They changed that to 90%. I think it was actually 2013, right before this.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But right now, the state reimburses us for that extra 10%, so the cities haven't really lost that. It just comes from a different source. But it's always kind of questionable how long they're gonna keep doing that.
Yep.
Another big change that happened in 2015, the multi-residential kind of became a separate classification. It used to be, I think it was under commercial, wasn't it?
It was under commercial, yeah.
So it was 100%. And they're gradually scaling that back.
Yeah, if you notice the one right in the middle, it just keeps dropping 4 or 5% each year. Eventually, it will end up the same as residential.
Yeah, and the residential gets adjusted every year. They cap the statewide growth at 3% residential property. So if it's growing more than 3%, they'll decrease that rollback number. They're just trying to control the growth on property tax. We don't have any say in that, the state sets that. And you can see this year, there's almost a 2% drop in that. That's pretty significant when it comes to
Yeah.
our budget.
Good for the homeowners, bad for the city.
But you know what, really put on the table there, there's, I think one of those sheets has our assessed values. And you can see that they've grown a fair amount, but our taxable valuation, because of the rollbacks, has gone up less than 1%, which is a lot less than previous years.
Yeah, so our, the 100% valuations from 18 to 19 went up $4.6 million, which is a lot, that's really good. But our amount after the rollback only went up $7,000. And that's mainly because of the multi-residential went down and the residential went down from 56.9 down to 55.07. So that almost 2%, because you know most of the property taxes we get are from residential houses, and so that almost 2% drop really hurt us this year.
So our taxable valuation stayed almost the have increases, such as wages, that, there are unions that are negotiated wages, those go up every year. We have other contracts that go up every year, so as we're gonna have to offset those increases, or we're gonna have to raise property taxes.
Yeah, so basically, the amount that we're receiving as property taxes is not going up at all this year from last year. The good news is it's not going down, but it's not going up either. So we have the same amount of revenue to bring in, but obviously we always have more expenses on a yearly basis. So that's a problem.
Any questions on that? This is just how the consolidated levy rate breaks out. It doesn't really affect our process. I just wanted everyone to see that. This is actually for Blackhawk County. Buchanan County's just a little bit different. You can see we're right about 40% of all property taxes.
So you, as a resident, you pay $36.9426 per $1,000 of your valuation of your home, your assessed valuation of your home, after the rollback has been applied.
These are numbers for the current fiscal year. I know this is really hard to see up on the screen, so it's fully printed off paper for the council. But this just kind of breaks down how our $14 breaks out different levies that we have left out.
So this is the current fiscal year we're in right now. This is not the new one that we're working on. This is the one we passed last March. And it just shows all the levies that we are using, which is almost impossible to see there. But over on the left-hand side, you have the regular general levy, and that's $8.10.
That's the highest that can go.
Yeah, that's maxed out. You can't go any higher than $8.10 per, and that's per $1,000 of valuation of your house. And then we, as a city, we levy to pay the liability and property and self-insurance for the city. So we have insurance that we have to pay for all the property we own and the vehicles, and we levy for that. And that's 34 cents per $1,000 of valuation. And then the voters elected to put this support public library levy in, so that's 27 cents per $1,000, and that's about $25,000 a year is what that generates to go towards supporting the library. And then if you remember earlier when I was talking about the emergency levy, it's the same amount, 27 cents per $1,000, and that money just goes into the general fund to support your general fund. And then we levy $2.16 per $1,000 for employee benefits, for the FICA and the IPERS and the health insurance that get paid. And then the last one we levy for is debt service, and that's $3.28, and that's just to make our yearly bond payments for the 3 bonds that we have that we use debt service for. So we have to collect that bond money through property taxes, through this $3.28, we collect it, and then we pay the bonds with that. So that's how the $14.43 is overall calculated.
Which bonds are we paying now?
We're still paying on South Street when we when we concreted South Street to I think it was 2011, and then in 2013 we did from 6th Street up to Prospect Street. We concreted that. We took out a bond for that, and then in 17 we did 4th, 5th, and Purdy Street, and we bonded for that. So we did build the new emergency services facility over here. We did bond for that, but that is not used through debt service to pay for that. That is, we're using the local option sales tax. That's 60% that goes toward capital projects. That is the local option sales tax is used to pay that bond.
How long do all the bonds have left?
The oldest one is South Street, and I think it's got 2 years left. And then 6th Street's got about 4 or 5 left. And then the 4th, 5th, and Purdy one we took out in 2017, so that's probably got 8 years. And then the emergency service facility was a 20-year bond. I think we made 1 payment, maybe 2. I think we made 2. 2? I think we made 2. So we got 18 to go on that one. Long time. So this $14.43 is what you guys as the council have to kind of work on setting, to get where we want to be at. So
This is a history of where our levy rate's been. It's stayed pretty steady or decreased a little bit the last 5 years plus. So I guess that's one thing that Coley and I would like to know, some direction from the council. You wanna try and keep the levy rate where it's at? It needs some pretty significant cuts to try and decrease it this year with those changes in the rollback. Are you comfortable with it going up a little bit?
you don't want a lot of fluctuation in this levy rate from year to year, because if it drops significantly, nobody notices or says good job or congratulations. But if then you have to raise it, 50 cents,
You're a pariah.
you're getting knifed.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to.
Stability and
Josh doesn't want to work that hard.
So you kind of want to try and keep it. Obviously, it's always good to go down, but you don't want to lower it drastically or raise it drastically. So, sorry.
Anybody have any preliminary thoughts on that? Without getting too deep into the numbers?
I think we're about gonna have to get deeper into the budget to kind of know where we're at before we can start really manipulating that very much.
And I do, obviously, at this point, have the revenues that we're going to receive for the year through the valuations, and I've also received all the department head reports back for the budget for each department. So, I have all the revenues, I have all the expenses now. So, yeah, now we're ready to get into the weeds. So, but I don't think we want to do that tonight. Tonight was just more of an overview, kind of help explain it, and so maybe to get everybody to understand it better.
Yeah, I agree with Denny. If we can get a little more into the budget process, and then we can get into the more of the meat and potatoes of it and see how it goes.
Another thing that we kind of touched on a little bit is if there's any projects that we really want to see get done this next fiscal year. Just with the timing of it, since we're not really starting this until January, it's gonna be tough to do a lot of really big projects. But there's one that I know was brought up, and it was rated pretty favorably when the previous city council did their assessment. It was that put a new water main crossing underneath the railroad tracks on First Street. Right now, we have one 12-inch main that crosses the railroad tracks and a 4-inch main. And last summer, when they were doing construction work here on 6th Street, they wanted to shut down that 12-inch main. Well, our water tower and both our wells are on the north side of the tracks, so you're trying to feed the whole south side of the tracks through one 4-inch main, which just isn't gonna work very well. So it's important that we get a second crossing reasonable size underneath those railroad tracks. And that was actually a project that was designed in 2015, I think. And then it got cut back to just doing the railroad crossing. But MSA has plans still be able to get that out to bid in March and still get, good bids on it. I think because that's already partially designed on that round pretty quick, so that's definitely one that I would recommend that we get in the budget. Only can send out that list that the council's talked about for the other project and see if there's anything really pressing that you want to try and get in this budget. That would be something, like I said, I'd ask you to bring back to our next council meeting, any ideas you might have there. I would like to have our budget discussions at the end of our regular council meetings as much as possible this year, instead of having special council meetings. Now, if it's getting on a crunch time, we have to have special meetings, we will. There's kind of a different procedure that the state's requiring now for the budget. We have to have 2 public hearings. Lloyd, can you try
Explain
to
it.
address that a little bit?
Try and decipher what the state is doing. Yeah, good luck. So, the first big thing they did was that if you go all the way to the bottom, March 31st, that's the deadline to adopt the budget. That has changed. It used to be March 15th. So they backed that up 15 days. And the reason they did that is if you go back to the top, obviously tonight is just an overview. And then the 21st, Chris wants to review the budget, and he's got on here finalize a max levy. So this is something brand new to all the cities, is that we have to do another public hearing and approve another resolution for what's called a max levy. And what that is it's the levy rates for only partial levies within the whole budget. So it's not levies that's on the certification page here, it's not all of them. So this first public hearing we have to do doesn't include debt service. It only includes, I think, the general fund. It doesn't include voted on levies. So like the library levy is not part of this max levy, but like the employee benefits is, and the emergency levy is. So this new levy resolution we have to approve is only part of all of the levies. So we have to do that first before we approve the complete budget. And
This
so,
is gonna be really confusing because when we propose this max levy, ours is gonna be in the range of like $9 or $10 per thousand. But then our actual levy rate's gonna be $14. And, well, it stays the same, $14.40
Chris, you sit down.
he wants you to come back over here.
Mike up again, would you, Chris?
And this max levy, we have to publish that in the newspaper prior to having the public hearing. So when it gets published, it's gonna say on there that our levy rate is like $10. But then there's gonna be a little fine print underneath that that says this doesn't include all your levies. So hopefully people read the fine print to make the, determination that there is more levies. So that's the extra step that we have to do this year, is we have to set a public hearing date, we have to publish this public hearing, publish this notice, and then approve a resolution after the public hearing for this max levy. That's the extra step that we have to do this year. So that's why they moved it back 15 days to March 31st. So
Can
then
we change the max levy after we do it this time?
you can only lower things after you approve the first one. You can't raise anything that's included in the max levy. And once you publish the full budget, that's the same thing. You can only lower anything within your public hearing and approving that resolution. If you needed to change anything, you can only lower it. So then we're moving on. Then we have to publish another public hearing for the full budget, and then hold the public hearing. Chris has got on here March 17th for the full budget, and adopt another resolution approving the full budget. So you kind of work backwards when you're approving your budget from the end, from March 31st.
And our max levy will actually be fairly simple because we're maxed out on most of those. The only one that would really change in there would be employee benefits. And those are,
Would be what?
Employee benefits could.
any
questions? Does that make sense?
So we'll get the actual numbers out to you pretty soon. And I would encourage you, if you have questions, to talk to Coley or myself. But
Yes. Please come into City Hall and ask questions.
Coley's the one that puts it all together, so he'd be the most knowledgeable. Anything else on budget? And do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oop, one more.
Oh,
Oh, maybe you
sorry. We got one more item. The fire department budget, the townships pay a portion of that, and we have a fire advisory board that consists of a representative from the city in each one of the townships and the fire chief. And they met, was it back in December, Andy?
Late November, I believe.
Late November, and they approved a budget for the fire department, and that has to come to the city for the city to council to approve it. And we approve that because we have to let the township know so they can finish up their budgets. So that's what's in your council packet tonight. There's a couple of things on there that are actually only internal city things.
Just one.
Just the
vehicle
vehicle replacement. So that's not actually, as part of the fire budget, but that's not what we share with the townships. That's 100% city participation. But we have to let the townships know that we agree with everything else that's on there. And I mean, for the most part, it was pretty much the same as last year.
Yeah, mostly. I fluctuated some numbers, and utilities is still a big what if that we share, because this building's so new that we're still trying to get a grasp, I think, on what the utilities are. We've only been in it a year and a half. So.
Andy, grab a mic, would ya?
Up there.
Take his.
Grab mine.
Can you hear me now?
Get close.
Alright. So yeah, anyways, most of it's the same. There's a $2,000 increase, and like I said, I don't know what okay, so you have the paper in your packet, but it shows current expenditures in this fiscal year. The proposed is what we're proposing for the next fiscal year, and then the change is the difference. If there's a number in that change category, that's the only change in that specific line item. If there is no number there, nothing's changed. So color coordinated, I don't know if you have that. Yeah. So if it's green, it's an increase. If it's a red, it's a decrease. Some of those I adjust by just previous year's trends. We get a 3-year previous trends. Some of that fuel and things like that. Fuel obviously goes up and down in price. Our calls go up and down in volume, so I go on trends. If we're not using that much fuel, then I don't try to budget for it. It seems minuscule on $100 on a $70,000 budget, but I try to put it to where it's more useful or where we're lacking. The biggest increase on this is for minor equipment and gear, and the only reason is that we're trying to work through our turnout gear. We're over our, I don't know what year we're on, 2008. We're at 11 years, almost 12 years now on our turnout gear, and NFPA requires that after 10 years that supposed to take gear out of service. So we're trying to work through replacing that. We're probably a third of the way through. This would allow us, coupled with some funding from probably the fire association to pitch in through donations, will help us to achieve to get to maybe 2/3 this year. So trying to, it's to the tune of 30 to 32 guys, whatever we average at $2,000 a firefighter. So we're working through a $70,000 project. Otherwise, the other thing I was talking about earlier was the utilities. Since the building's so new, that number fluctuates. We have no idea really where we're at. Was it hot last year and the air conditioning ran a lot, and this year it won't? I don't know. So it seems like the utilities come in way over, and then we were way under to begin with. So pure speculation.
That one's tough.
But like Coley said, the only item on this for those of you that are new is just the vehicle replacement is specific to the city only and has nothing to do with the townships, because that is just to replace your city vehicles. The fire department has 2 vehicles that are owned by the townships. That is their responsibility to replace those. So I don't know if you want me to explain the cost sharing agreement a little bit. No? Okay.
Way too confusing, isn't it?
No, not really. But
No,
Go ahead.
yeah.
There's a lot of new people.
Sorry.
so the cost sharing agreement, that's this document.
The next one.
That just shows you through our 2080 agreement with the townships. We have 4 townships that we service plus the city. We're in a 5-way split on how the funding is contributed, how each entity contributes to the funding. Uses the same thing. The city uses taxable valuations based on each entity. So each entity has a taxable valuation that's updated yearly. The total calls, we use a 5-year average of running calls in that specific jurisdiction. And then the population for each specific area also is always from the latest census, so back in 2010. Those 3 numbers go into a calculation, which is all figured out below. I don't expect you to understand any of those percentages. It's all based on taxable valuations versus calls over a 5-year period versus how much people are actually using the service. Every year that changes, and so when I plug in the new number as far as how the budget comes out, it adjusts all those numbers based on the updated taxable valuations and total calls. So you'll see, I don't know if you get the second page.
Yes.
Off the second page, it shows the change over here. That is the net change per entity every year. So sometimes, even though there's a $2,000 increase in the budget, doesn't mean that just because the city's responsible for 43% of the budget, doesn't mean that they're going to absorb 43% of it. This year's a good example. The budget proposal is to increase the overall budget $2,051, but the city's contribution this year will actually net a $2,185 increase. A lot of that was call driven. So last year alone, we helped the ambulance service quite a bit. So every one of those calls that was in the city limits went back towards the city's call volume. So that's going to affect that 5-year period. So that come back in. So some people are actually Fox Township's going to be $470 less this year. Barclay's almost going to be a wash. Perry Township's goes up 391, and Westburg goes down 113. So, do you have any questions on how that works?
So basically, I think what he's saying is on that one page, it's a $70,000 budget. The city's portion is $32,899.28, and the townships pay the rest between the 4 townships. So of the $76,331, city pays $32,000. And so we collect that township money on a monthly basis from the 4 townships.
Any other questions for Andy? Does someone want to make a motion to approve the fire department budget?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is just a $2,000 increase, right?
Yeah, this does not include the vehicle replacement line item.
Yeah, but it's $2,051. That's the increase, basically,
The
right?
city share is a little over 2,100 is what we should probably be looking at.
Oh, okay, right.
This is a roll call vote.
Yes. Bell,
Yes.
Shares,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Rolfson,
Yep.
Bishop.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now we're ready to adjourn. Somebody wants to
So
make that
moved.
motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You?
All opposed, signify by saying nay.
Said it by the way.
Motion passes. We're adjourned.